such a crazy season for the Knicks. A lot of high hopes coming into this one. You sign Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier. You get Mitchell Robinson back into that starting rotation. But it's not been as great as Knicks fans had hoped it would be. Some struggles with that chemistry in that starting rotation. You lose a really bad game to the Suns Friday night, a game that they were in the first quarter, but then completely fell apart after. Devin Booker was on fire last night. Just the offense was a complete no-show for the Knicks. If you had to grade the season, Lou, for the Knicks so far, what would you give them?
I think straight out it's probably a B because you look at that hot start, that's exactly what you want. You went 5-1 in October, and now you look at November and they're 5-8. And I think it's a mixed bag. You have some really impressive wins, even in this month alone. You beat the Bucks twice. And you have wins against the Lakers, wins against the 76ers, a couple wins against the 76ers. You look on the other side, and there were just some tough wins, losing to Orlando twice, losing to the Pacers, getting blown out by the Cavs, even getting blown out by the Suns. It's not a problem that you lose to the Suns. Suns are a great team. To get blown out, that's not where you're supposed to be anymore as an organization. You're supposed to be this team should be able to hang with teams like the Suns, give them a little fight. So I think, I don't want to be too harsh on them because, yes, they're still coming along. They're still developing, but they're expected to take a little bit of a leap from last year. So I think a B is a good spot to give them for now.
I would say around there. I might go B-. But it's like I think you're right in that ballpark.
I'm leaning towards B-.
Yes.
It's between B and B-.
I think a big thing is just playing down to those teams. You mentioned the Orlando losses, 2 of them, both at home. You also look at the Rockets' win,
like 7-point win. How do you don't feel happy about a 7-point Rockets win?
It did not feel like a 7-point win. We were on Pick a Pod yesterday, and Chris Persiano was like, "I felt like a 35-point loss to the Rockets." They really did not play well that game. And the thing with the Suns game, Friday, is that they got completely outplayed. It was this. When watching the game, you saw the difference between a team that's in the finals and a team that's really just starting. The ball movement, every player on the same page, like the cohesiveness on that offense for the Suns, that is just not there for the Knicks yet. And that's just going to be the difference between them, being a great team in the Eastern Conference and, being at that back end and fighting for a playoff spot. I think that's the difference at the end of the day. And it's up to that starting lineup, up to Coach Tom Thibodeau to really find a way to make this starting unit mesh the best way they can.
Right, and you look at the Suns at 16-3, and that's a team that knows how to play their best brand of basketball a majority of the time. And I think that's not something you see from the Knicks yet. They're still very much a team that's coming together in the sense that this isn't a team that's going to give you their best brand of basketball every day in and day out. You're going to see still ugly losses. That's kind of unfortunate, and that's something that I think you're going to have to see starting to get phased out as this team expects to make a run because I think as you look at our expectations for this Knicks team, it's you got to make the playoffs, and not only that, you might have to do something in this playoffs. I don't think it's enough again to just make it, and I don't even think that they could finish in 4th place like last year with the way the Eastern Conference is shaping up this year. But even if you just make a play and play competitive and maybe try and win around here, because the expectation of Knicks fans is now great. You made the playoffs last year. Let's see something more. Let's at least win around.
And I think that's a great point. You want to make a jump. I think too many teams, I think the Portland Trail Blazers have been treading water for so long, and that's been the problem with that organization is that they've gotten into the playoffs year in and year out, but they haven't really, made that step, to make consecutive Western Conference Finals or make an NBA Finals. They've really just been in the Western Conference semifinals, maybe the first round exits. And I think that's been the problem. If you want the New York Knicks to be a legit team in 3 or 4 years, you need to continually make a step in the right direction because it's not all of a sudden you're going to turn and you're going to be a finals team after not advancing to the Eastern Conference semifinals or not advancing to the finals. I think that's a really big thing to note, and it's just about I think there are a lot of things that are different about this team, especially when looking at the starting lineup. When they're on the court, it's almost like you're not watching guys who know how to play with each other. When you look at the second unit, on the other hand, they're on the page all the time. They're on the same page. They run up and down the court. Manuel Quickley's been great this year. Obi Toppin's been very good in his role. Even Alec Burks has been really good. Derrick Rose, when playing, he's been great. But you can't say the same about the starting lineup, and I can't shake that in my head where it's this starting lineup's just not there, and it's getting to the point where you'd rather the second unit, and that's what Coach Tom Thibodeau has been running in a lot of fourth quarters this season, that second unit. you just need that starting five to be on the same page as what the second unit has been doing. That's really the biggest takeaway for me so far from watching Knicks basketball.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths going in for me with this Knicks team was the depth they had in their bench, because I looked at that second unit and I went, man, like every guy that's coming off the bench can give you quality production, whether it's Taj Gibson, Nerlens Noel, quickly coming off the bench, Obi Toppin having a much better year in his sophomore season, Alec Burks, right? So guys coming off the bench that you're confident in can, when your starters come out, replicate their production. Honestly, in this, in their case, probably doing better. And you look at that starting five. And for me, I wonder, is it a case of, is the starting five just simply not talented because they're still not that A-plus star that, Knicks fans have been pining for? But it's still a very solid starting five. Randall's averaging a double-double. I love what I've seen from R.J. Barrett. I think you said it. It's more about the chemistry that they're playing with, because I think the talent is there for this starting five to be good, to be solid at least. And I think that it really comes with just playing together a little more and hopefully having it click, because it can't be the case where the second unit comes in and they're consistently stronger than your starting five.
I think we're going to get a lot of the answers to these questions over this next stretch of games. You have the Suns last night, you've got the Hawks tonight, you've got the Nets Tuesday night, then you go to the Bulls Thursday night, Nuggets Saturday during the day. You got a lot of playoff games ahead. And this was something Coach Tom Thibodeau touched on in the postgame press conference. He was asked, about playing the Suns Friday night and then a back-to-back with the Hawks the next day. He really talked about, what you need to do in this league, to keep that momentum going. We actually got sound from him. This is what Coach Tom Thibodeau had to say about the back-to-back between the Suns and the Hawks.
Yeah, that's the league. That's the league, and sometimes like we had a short break, the 2 days, and then Thanksgiving. But that you got to keep your edge. That's the challenge of the league. And sometimes the schedule's in your favor, sometimes it's not. But every night there could be an excuse. You don't want to do that. You want to be ready to go. That's what we have to do.
There, well, what he has to say about this team keeping their edge and keeping the energy going, I think that's a really interesting thing, because that's something that, I've noticed with the Knicks when you look at their game, Friday night, he mentioned that he thought the energy was a little low. I think watching it, you could tell that they did not look like the same team they were Tuesday night against the Lakers. And I don't think that's a product of the schedule. I just think about, when you know the guys very well, you're very comfortable with the guys on the court, it's easier to bring that energy every night. And I just don't think the starters are there. And I think that the Hawks, the Nets, the Bulls, the Nuggets, these games coming up, they might be able to find something. And these are playoff teams. These are going to get you ready for that playoff stretch that you're practicing for, that you're playing for, that you want to get back to. This is going to be a big test for the Knicks. I'm really looking forward to seeing them in these games and how they respond to the loss to the Suns Friday night.
Right, that was, I think, Knicks fans, one of their favorite things about the team last year was the energy they played with all throughout the season. It was kind of that underdog mentality. They brought the energy every single game. They almost treated every single game like a playoff game. And that's why it was kind of funny when they lost in the playoffs, and people were like, when they get to the playoffs, everyone brings that energy. And I think this year you're starting to see maybe the Knicks getting just a little bit more comfortable, or not necessarily bringing that energy, every single night. And it's tough. You look at the schedule, there really aren't going to be easy stretches. This is an Eastern Conference that has 10 teams with already double-digit wins. 13 of the 15 teams have 9 wins. So most of this Eastern Conference is either right there or in the periphery, like so close on the outside looking in. So I think the Knicks end up being on even footing, whether they're a little bit better or a little worse than a lot of the teams they're going to play. So it's not like they're going to get a lot of easy stretches where they can look at the schedule and go, all right, we can take a breather for a little bit here. We have a little bit of a run, because they've lost to the teams that you would have thought would have been gimmies, the Magic,